Welcome to this special call Design Review Committee meeting of November the 21st, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Design Review Committee is a subcommittee of historic zoning. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or COA for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the historic district design guidelines. Applicant participation in these meetings is voluntary but highly recommended. Changes made or suggestions taken by the applicant based on discussions with the DRC are the applicant's choice, but the DRC makes no representation of whether any of these changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, which is the Historic Zoning Commission. This special call meeting today is to discuss one proposed development plan in light of the design district guidelines. The applicant will provide a presentation up to 15 minutes, and then the staff will provide comments. Afterward, the DRC will provide comments. The meeting will conclude at 3:45 to allow setup time for the meeting that will start at 4 o'clock. So, our item today is discussion of the preliminary Historic Zoning Commission recommendation for conceptual subdivision called the Middle Eight, proposed at 228 Franklin Road. Kaiser Vogren Design applicant. Welcome.
Welcome.
Gary, we'll let you start it. Just hit that button there.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for everybody's time. We appreciate this special called session to give us the chance to talk about our vision for this property. And we'd like to hold our time to this allowed time frame and just present briefly the presentation we shared with Amanda and you all. Introduce the team. My name is Gary Vogren, Kaiser Vogren Design. I have Dwight Kaiser with Kaiser Vogren Design, Toby and Amanda McKeon, owners of the property, residents of the city of Franklin, Charles Rulick, part of the team of Truland. I've got also with us Antunovich Architects, Joe and Greg here as well, and they'll just kind of come in as we have questions pinged at us if we need to, and just answer them as we can. Amanda, can I just view that slide show wall so I can? I don't want to be looking over there. So, but you know, we really want to speak to you about the vision of the project. And with that, I'd like to introduce Toby and Amanda to just say a few words about this property, the significance of their home in this community. So go ahead.
So just before we get started, I know this is a new setup for everyone. So I want to remind you all that when you speak, please speak into a microphone because this is being recorded for the public. Make sure that you push the button so that the green light is on. So you may be able to hear each other, but that doesn't mean that our communications team can actually hear you. So just be mindful of that. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Toby McKeon. This is my wife, Amanda.
You're used to the microphone.
Yeah. They gave me a few minutes to just share about our history here. And so in 1993, we got married and set our eyes on Franklin. We lived in Brentwood at the time. Fell in love with the historic charm of Franklin. Wanted to be here. Most of my friends thought we were crazy, but we wanted to be here. We saw in driving around several times, we saw the Alpheus Truitt house for sale. We loved it. It was well out of our price range. We told our realtor, maybe we just make a crazy offer. So we offered, I think it was on sale for $400,000. We offered $300,000. And the owner then was
$299.
I think $299 maybe. And the owner then asked if she could sit down with us, and it was Mrs. Himmelfarb, Elliot and Mrs. Himmelfarb. They sat down. They asked to sit down with us. We sat down with him, and they said, "Listen, I raised my kids in that house, and I lived there for 22 years. You think you're going to have kids?" And we said, "We do." And they said, "We love that house." And we said, "I think we will." She said, "You could have it for what you offered." So we bought it then for that price. And since then, we've just been citizens of Franklin since 1994 when we bought it. Almost 29 years living there. We obviously care about the home deeply. We obviously care about our neighbors. And many developers have come to us asking about because it's a good amount of property. Liberty Pike wasn't there when we bought it, and have come to us about wanting to do something with that land. We felt very protective of it. We kept slowing it down, and then when Envision Franklin said we picture that as multifamily, Then developers really started coming around. We talked to a few, they showed us some things, and we just felt like, man, that doesn't seem like Franklin to us. It wouldn't be right. We don't want that in our backyard. And it is our backyard. So we kept slowing it down. Finally, I don't know if you want to take over at some point.
Yeah, I think we want to be really brief so that we can hear you guys. So very quickly, we realized there were valid things that were brought to us by developers, but they were not Franklin. They were good, but they didn't have that soul that Franklin has. We love Franklin. So very happily, Gary and Dwight, back in 2003, when the big tornadoes came through Franklin, our house got hit, and they had a young man working with them, Charles Rolick. So all our relationships go back to like 2003, who is a very seasoned developer, has developed all over the nation. And we started to just talk about, could you help us do something that feels like Franklin? So we partnered with him, and we decided to say, okay, let's do that. We started in 2021. We brought our first vision to the staff in 2021, and now you're seeing our fourth concept. We called it the Middle Eight really quickly. Am I over time? Okay. We called it the Middle Eight, and that's really important. We're going to refer to it as the Middle Eight because when we first met with the mayor and Vernon, the mayor said to us, if you're going to do something there, I want you to be thinking about the creatives. And we thought, well, okay, I think we understand the creatives. The Middle Eight is a term that's used in a song when you're building a song. A song is verse, chorus, verse, chorus. And right in the middle, a lot of very famous songs, we were actually listening to some of them today, have a little piece in the middle that is different. And they call that the Middle Eight because it's usually 8 bars that are different. What's the most famous Beatles one? Can you see it my way? That's the most famous Middle Eight. And what it is
Which is
that
the bridge of the song, but the old school term is the Middle Eight, really.
it's a musician's term.
Yeah.
And what it is a piece within the song, a little song within the song. And that just feels right because we love the song Franklin has written and is singing, and we want to be a little song within the song of Franklin. And that's why the name The Middle Eight. And so we'll kind of... and hopefully it will bring some of those creatives the mayor wants.
Thank you.
Was
both.
that quick enough?
I appreciate you. Thank you.
We signed 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Well done. No, well done. So thank you. So we presented to you a series of slides kind of showing the vision, the character of the Middle Eight, and really be a true community that aspires the bar and raises the bar for what connected mixed-use living in Franklin means, designed to provide a range of housing options and to enrich the neighborhood. So if you can go to the first slide. Oh, go back to that one, yeah. So as Amanda had mentioned, we've been working with DRT staff, Amanda, Kelly, and others to work on various concepts of the plan, but really want to step quickly through this image here. This starts to talk about the factory district, that we are working with our 2 aldermen, Matt Brown and Patrick Baggett, to really create something unique and special that kind of, the stars have aligned, and so to speak, that we're getting streetscape done on Main Street, enhancements to Harlesdale, the park at Harlesdale Farm, the factory, this opportunity site that is 7.22 acres of their home site, to really create something unique as a Franklin factory district. And I say that because we are going to go forward with an Envision Franklin amendment to reassign or reclassify this area as the Franklin factory district, which really encourages a lot of things in terms of improving streetscape in addition to Main Street down Liberty Pike. We know Liberty Pike is just a street that's not very pedestrian friendly. How can we enhance that streetscape? Enhancements at the park at Harlesdale Farm. There's a lot of great things going on at the park there, the streetscape to that. Addition of the factory, the improvements there that we all know about. Building off the Jameson Station, the retail, the residential there. Just creating another gateway as Liberty Pike comes into the city of Franklin, ties into Franklin Road, the new streetscape, all that character coming together to create this factory district. So we have the support from the alderman that at some point we're going to go ahead and make that submission. But it's just a great way to create this opportunity. Next slide, Amanda, please. So this is just a little bit about the character of our site. You can see the The red line is the property limits for this area.
Zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, sure. There's an enlargement. You can go to the second one too. There's another enlargement too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, there's a second one, so you can go there.
There we go.
Yeah. So this speaks a little bit of the character of the area, the topography of the site. The site slopes plus or minus 20 feet from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike. So there's grade change that we need to accommodate. The Truett House along Franklin and Liberty Pike, that location Amanda's highlighting there. We came to you back a few months back to bring a plat before you. That red zone there is a allocation of a 75-foot naturalistic screening buffer. That's the maximum buffer that's in the zoning code. We want to use that as part of the separation and buffer between the existing historic home site and this development. So that'll be intact. Simply showing the yellow dot is the Alpheus Truett House, the National Registered property, the 75-foot buffer in that hatch. This image really just denotes the HPO, the Historic Preservation Overlay. Your review and approval is what we like to get there.
So just to clarify for a moment, you can see the hatched area, the dotted area
property.
is the property, and only a portion of it is in the Historic Preservation Overlay. So the portion that the Historic Zoning Commission will be providing comment on and reviewing in light of the design guidelines is the area shaded in green here, which is approximately half of it going, if you're half of the depth of it.
Correct, yeah, basically bisects the site east-west. Thank you, Amanda. And we show that common HPO line on the master plan too, so you can see where that demarcation is as well.
Give me just a moment. The memory might not be holding up on this one. We'll check just a moment.
Some large graphic files in there.
It may not have combined correctly. I don't remember what slide number it was, but I'll find it
Oh,
here.
you're fine, just keep going. You're good.
I need more memory on my laptop.
That happens with PDFs. Okay, so before that was a little history about the current zoning, potential Envision Franklin, things of that nature. We can get back into that, but this slide here talks about that 75-foot naturalistic screening element in terms of what the plant material might be. This is not the final design, but we know we need to landscape, create an opaque screen between the house and this property. So allocating, plan north is the garage and the home itself. To the right is Liberty Pike, creating the 75-foot naturalistic screen. There'll be landscape material to supplement that, but no structures of any kind in that. We will have an access easement connecting to the townhomes right through there, shown conceptually on the plan, so we'll have that little bit of a break there just to get back to the existing garage for the home site itself. So they can still maintain that access on Liberty Pike as well as Franklin Road.
Amanda, would you mind sharing the slide before?
Sure.
So going back to a little bit of history of the land use of the site. Per Envision Franklin, this site is denoted as multifamily residential, per the orange color in this code. So this is the current design concept for Envision Franklin. Just want to point that out. The current zoning is R4. We would be coming in with a PD, planned development, which is a rezoning. So we'll be changing the color of the map for a rezoning effort, but coming in as a multifamily Envision Franklin. But we're also thinking in talking with the alderman as we come with this factory district that we talked about, we may come in and change the Envision Franklin document from multifamily to neighborhood mixed use to potentially allow commercial as part of a mixed use community. So, but just wanted to share that with you on that regard. These are just supplemental images of the site. You've all been around there. If we need to do another site visit at some time, be happy to do that and set that up. But this just shows some of the character, existing photographs of the site just for your reference and as you review this document, so you can kind of skip through those. If we got questions about the site, we can always come back to those as well and talk about those. So getting to the master plan. So I'm going to kind of run through these in terms of, and I've got an enlargement of this, but if you can just show the overall for this, Amanda, real quick.
Sure.
So you can keep it right there, that's fine. So as you can see, the factory to the north, Franklin Road to the left, Jameson to the right. All the discussions we had with DRT, with Amanda and others, is how do we create that transition from Franklin Road along Liberty Pike towards Jameson Station, and create that transition of building movement and character and style from Franklin Road and the historic house towards Daniels Drive. So in this plan, we show both transitions from Franklin Road to Daniels Drive to Jameson Station, but also from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike, creating an internal street that separates the multifamily from the single-family duplexes and towns. So talking about building character, you can go to the next slide. Enlargement of this, first off, you can see there's a faint blue line that kind of bisects the site. That is the HPO line per the zoning ordinance. So really focusing along Daniels Drive to the right, Liberty Pike, and down what we call the new street that comes off of Franklin, or Liberty Pike, parallel Franklin Road into the community. So the biggest takeaway from this is the transition from the home. Starting from plan left, we are showing townhomes that are 2-story, fronting Liberty Pike, building 1 is labeled there, and then there's 3 single-family homes behind that with common shared driveways off the main public street, the 75-foot naturalistic buffer between those homes, but providing a residential 2-story transition from the home to the site, and we'll show some images on that. As you progress down Liberty Pike, we're showing a multifamily building that is a 2-story plus 1 recessed, so along Liberty Pike. Those two kind of penetrations along Liberty Pike are both 2 stories plus 1. We really want to activate the street to create not a long facade. We want to break up the facade there, so that's why you see a courtyard in between, like a U-shaped building there, to create a better pedestrian street, animate the street, activate the street. And then you move over to building next to that towards Daniels, that transitions to a 4+1 recessed building, both of those elevations that create that U shape along Liberty Pike with a courtyard, mimicking the relative same height as the factory as you come to Daniels Drive. So you have that transition going from Franklin Road, 2-story, 2+1 recessed, and then 4 stories plus 1 recessed towards Daniels Drive. But really want to talk about the streetscape, about Liberty as well. We really want to enhance that and activate it per the code, make it pedestrian friendly, walkability on Liberty Pike, units addressing the street, people on the street, eyes on the street, creating animation, and opening these courtyards to the street to break up the facade of the building. That was a lot of things we talked about with the DRT, was how do we just create something unique along Liberty Pike and also along this new street that comes into off of Liberty Pike, just off of Franklin Road. Let's go back to that one more time, I'm sorry. I just speak a little bit to the, and this is a little bit outside of your review, but I want to talk about it. So if you follow the new street coming off of Liberty Pike, that kind of winds its way back, all those units that are south of that road are a series of duplexes, single-family homes. Again, another transition from Liberty Pike to Old Liberty Pike. And we'll show some images of some of those elements as well.
Next.
Yes. So the first rendering here didn't show the key map on here. Can you zoom out just a little bit? Okay, there you go. So this is a rendering along Liberty Pike. You're standing at the corner of the new entrance. There's a little yellow kind of arrow there that kind of shows you where you are. You're kind of at that corner down Liberty Pike, looking towards Jameson Station at the very terminus. So to your right are these 2-story townhomes fronting Liberty Pike, creating, again, a walkable street, animated porches and stoops on Liberty Pike, welcoming people to the residents of this community. And to the right of that, or to the behind that, is that first street off of Franklin Road. And there shows that 2 stories plus 1 recess that is a great transition from the single family and townhomes on this street to the multifamily element of the buildings. But a lot of activation of the street. We're showing a median along Liberty Pike. Again, this is something we're just trying to animate, create a better streetscape along Liberty Pike along here. Moving down Liberty Pike, this is the second courtyard down towards Daniels, but again, it just shows this is the 4 stories plus 1 recessed. This just shows the animation of the streetscape, pulling the building back so it's not always front and center of the street. It kind of opens and kind of comes forward and back, creating activity and social gathering areas for people to enjoy, water features, animation of landscape material and plantings. Next slide. This shows the image within our new street coming past the townhomes, just past the Alpheus Truitt House. So the townhomes are on the right. As you look down the street, you start to see the single-family detached on the right-hand side, then terminates into a duplex at the end. Along the left side is the multifamily buildings, the 3+1, and the 2+1 as you work through the site, because we do have grade coming down the street there. But it starts to break up the mass along the street. And I'm going to show you a next slide that kind of shows that central residential muse here. So now we're down the new street, and across the street from us, behind us on the shot, is the single-family residential on the other side of the street, looking down this very comfortable residential muse, which is opening up and transitioning the building from one solid mass. We want to break it up into two separate buildings with a kind of a little catwalk there that breaks down the building scale, but just opens up units along this little corridor and muse and animates it through activity. Just a lot of formal plantings through here, some water features just to create something active there, but a good transition across the street. So on the opposite side of that, this is what that transition from Liberty Pike down to the duplexes to the end of southern portion of the site, showing the townhomes to the right. You can see kind of the grade going down this new street. Then you see 3 residential units there, and then the last one on the left is a duplex. It shows the scale and the massing and the separation. We want to transition from the Truitt House to this street. You can see a little bit of a hint of the home site in the background in the trees there, just to show its relationship. Yeah, right through there. Thank you, Amanda. That's the Alpheus Truitt House back there, but want to show how that kind of streetscape works in its own regard. Next slide. This is another, this is one of the last ones. So this is just another break between the buildings, animating the streetscape, breaking up the facade of the building, very active space, spilling out from inside to outside, but just trying to create something unique as opposed to all facade buildings. One last one. This is the last one. This is outside the historic preservation overlay. This shows the greenhouse element. The history nod. The nurseryman who owned the house, the Alpheus Truitt House, created greenhouses on his property. So we want to showcase this as part of a pocket park in the community and animate and showcase that nod to history and show something that's usable, ample open space, but also functional. So with that, a lot to take in there. We'd love to get your feedback and insight, and we can take it from there, but appreciate your time. And we can answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Gary and Dwight. That was a very helpful presentation.
Try to go quicker.
I know that everyone has just received a lot of information, and it's a lot to digest, but I would like to reinforce some points that Gary made and offer some others. As he mentioned, this area is currently zoned R4, which would allow for single-family residential, and the request would be to rezone it for a planned development. The Historic Zoning Commission has, over the last year, provided, as part of our zoning ordinance review process, recommendations on proposed developments within the historic district as related to the design guidelines that would apply. In this case, we look more specifically at the conceptual considerations like height, the scale, the massing, the setbacks of the building in relation to the historic and other buildings around it. In this case, the applicant is requesting something that does not meet the recommendations of the Envision Franklin document. That document is the document that's used by the city team to evaluate plan developments for land uses. As he mentioned, right now, it's recommended to be multifamily residential design concept. That would support a mix of residential uses and would limit the heights to 3 stories inside of Mack Hatcher. The applicant would be requesting an amendment to the land use plan that would go to what I believe you said, neighborhood mixed use. Neighborhood mixed use would support some commercial uses. So, storefronts, facing Liberty, for example. But the land use plan currently recommends that neighborhood mixed use only support 2 stories in height at this location. So the recommendation would be that the applicant move forward through that process. And hear the comments from you all about whether or not that height would be supported by the design guidelines. The applicant would need to acknowledge that the amendment request would not meet Envision Franklin either, so there would need to be some language written, some special considerations, particularly for this site, for the Planning Commission to consider. The land use plan is administered by the Planning Commission. It is not administered by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So the request here today is really to gauge the Historic Zoning Commission through the DRC process to get a temperature, if you will, on the height, the massing, the scale, the setbacks for this project as shown to you today in relation to the context that we have in the historic districts here. This is a unique situation. We have across the street a National Register listed property, the factory. We also have a National Register listed property adjacent to it, which was previously part of this property, the Truett House, a single-family residential. And then we also have infill, as of the last decade-ish, Jameson Station, which is just east of this property, adjacent to it. And behind it, we also have what's not in the historic preservation overlay, but a series of mixes of historic and non-historic single-family homes behind on Old Liberty Pike. Across the street, of course, you have from the factory, you have Harlansdale Farm. And then as you move more, I guess that would be east, you have the Everly Apartments that are across the railroad track. So transition can be difficult, especially when you transition from one building form, like commercial, to a different building form, residential. And so I commend the applicant for trying to keep those transitional features in mind and how you would go from a more intense building form through height and scale and mass back toward Franklin Road. The way the design guidelines read, it would recommend that we look to the historic buildings on the block face for inspiration on how to apply guidelines. In that case, it would be the Truett House. So that would be a conversation that we probably all need to have, staff, the applicant, the DRC, on where appropriate setbacks would be. The guidelines would recommend that setbacks look to the Truett House from the Liberty Pike side. And perhaps that is, having the single-family buildings that are proposed here be set back more from Liberty Pike so that you transition a more intense setback back toward Franklin Road, where there are single-family residences, and the setback's pretty significant from the roadway. We also have a scale that we need to address across the street at the factory. It's a 2-story scale. Jameson Station is a 3-story building with a 4th story recessed, non-historic building. The Truett House is a 2-story. Mm-hmm. And a majority of the buildings that are single-family on Franklin Road are a mix between 1 and 1.5 and 2-story, and a lot of different vernacular styles. The guidelines would recommend that height measure no more than within 10% above or below the height of the average buildings on the block face. That can be a little difficult, as we said, because you do have Jameson Station on one side, which is significantly taller than you have at the intersection here. And my computer has been trying to restart, so I will try to get it to not do that. Okay, so it would be apropos to acknowledge the heights on each side and try to figure out a way to transition, which they've already sought to address in various ways. Another thing to consider is that the design goals and policies of the design guidelines are written for each neighborhood, being the historic district itself. On the Franklin Road portion of the design goals and policies, it does recommend that one limit height to no more than 1 and 2 stories, that we maintain the open rural character in areas around Harlansdale, provide an uncongested gateway into the downtown Franklin area that emphasizes the historic character of the community, continue to project an open rural appearance by ensuring that new construction maintains a balance of buildings and roads and open space, that we maintain the established rhythm and spacing of buildings relative to the established context in the immediate area, which I believe would be something that we'd want to look at more significantly with setbacks. And then to design any changes within the district to reflect and maintain the key characteristics. Franklin Road's key characteristics are primarily single-family and primarily a space between buildings, setbacks, and then also we have the factory and the farm. So it's just a unique district, and it's one of a kind, and that's why we're going through this process to get your feedback on that. If you have any questions for me about the design guidelines and in terms of what should and should not apply, I'd be happy to weigh in, but we'd like to use this time to get your feedback as well. And just for a note, the applicant is going through that land use plan amendment process at some point, so they'll be back before you. So this is not your only opportunity to speak to this project. As you digest it, I'm sure that Gary and his team will be back more than once to gauge your thoughts on things as we go forward. Kelly, do you have anything to add? All right, thanks.
Okay, we'll let this group throw up some things out. Kelly, I would like for you to comment on Envision Franklin. Gary referred to that several times, and just touch on that again, how this development would fit in as it is currently written.
This proposal does not meet the Envision Franklin recommendations for building height or land uses
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, all right, that's good. All right, let's let our group start. I'll start down the row. Whoever wants to start first on, Josh, you want to start?
Well, Mr. Chair, since Kelly made that comment.
Yeah.
Could she tell us what Envision Franklin does recommend?
I think Amanda touched on that, but go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. This is the multifamily design concept. They've indicated they are going to request a plan amendment to the neighborhood mixed-use design concept, but currently, in accordance with the multifamily, it recommends no more than 3 stories and residential uses. So multifamily uses, townhouses, duplexes, big houses, single family. It does not envision commercial uses in the multifamily design concept. In order to go through to change Envision Franklin, it would involve an application to do so, a neighborhood meeting, a public hearing before the Planning Commission, and a vote by the Planning Commission to change Envision Franklin. The design concept that it is going to be requested is neighborhood mixed use, which in Central Franklin inside McHatcher recommends no more than 2 stories as well.
So just to clarify on that, when we're going with Envision Franklin for neighborhood mixed use, we're not saying we're adding retail to the project. We're just saying there may be an opportunity for a small coffee shop or something like that. We're not saying we're going to do something like Jameson Station and have ground floor, all the entire retail. And there's a note in Envision Franklin that talks about neighborhood mixed use that if commercial isn't viable, then that's not one of the elements. So we're not saying we're putting retail on the ground floor. I just want you to hear that.
Okay.
But we are meeting the multifamily in terms of multifamily, residential, single family, duplexes, townhomes, elements, so. Yeah.
I just, before we start into it, I think this is our first shot at this. Y'all have been working on this since 2003 and before, perhaps, and so.
Agreed.
If a lot of this is, just understand where we are.
We're here to help.
And it's a lot
We're here
to
to help.
unpack, and I can
Yes.
tell that you have spent a lot of time developing what you've got and have
Right.
presented to all of us today.
Yes.
And I thank
A lot
you
of
for that.
information.
So let's just go from there.
Absolutely,
With that in
yeah.
mind. Josh, yeah, fire.
Mindful of the fact that we have 10 minutes.
Well, you're a lawyer, you can be brief.
Yeah, I'm gonna be super brief. No, it is a lot to unpack. I think the plans you presented are impressive and thorough, and I really appreciate that because it is a big change for Franklin, and it's literally in your backyard. So I'm not saying anything that you all don't already know and appreciate. My biggest kind of reaction to it is the scale of that 4-story with a 5th step back, I mean, that seems, that just jumps out at me. And there may be some more things I'd want to see looking at it, but from a scale and massing piece, it's a big change on Franklin Road. I'm familiar with Jameson Station. That is, 3-story with the step back from what I could see, so that's going up, at least another story. And that, the rendering, while really, really attractive, does read big to me.
Josh, excuse me, would you
Yeah.
hit that green button? Thank you.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay. For the public, I guess I'll just say my biggest concern is just in reacting is the scale and massing, especially that last building. And I'm mindful of the fact that you all have multifamily, so it's not a debate about that.
Right.
You know.
And our intent, Josh, is to match the same character height at that corner. We're
Okay.
not trying to go higher than James. We want to stay in that same plane.
Is that because of grade?
It's
The
great, but
change?
also Jameson Station is a 3-story plus, so it's 4 stories. But it has retail ground floor, so that first floor is elevated high. Ours is going to be a 4+1, 5 stories next to a 4, but they have the same height because we don't have that high floor retail on the ground floor like Jameson
Okay.
does.
I
So we
think-
want to match the character at that corner in terms of height.
I think that would be some comparison, that rendering, and maybe I missed it in all these, would be helpful
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian?
When this first came before the Historic Zoning Commission for recommendation to the Planning Commission, one thing that caused me to hesitate a bit is because of what we're dealing with on Franklin Road and then coming around onto Liberty Pike and the scale and the massing of what we might be suggesting to be approved. So I've always been concerned about that transition. So you move from all this residential on Franklin Road that's historic, and then you come to Liberty Pike, and when you come down that corridor, you see the factory to the left, which basically a 1 to 2-story structure. So I appreciate you coming before us with these detailed drawings. What I'm seeing with the single family shows more of that transition that I would hope to see as you come down Liberty Pike, with the exception of the townhome structure that looks to be 3 stories, which would be closest to the Truett House as I see this, as we're coming down. And I don't know what height the Truett House is, and if you could find that out, that would be great. And then what height would be proposed on a building like this. But I think it looks out of scale not only to the development because of the grade change, but also to the Truett House. And that would be one of my concerns. I defer, to Envision Franklin and the historic guidelines for the height of the other types of they look like apartment buildings. I guess they're condos, apartments.
It's multifamily residential, yeah.
So that apartments. The 4-story plus 1, seems a little excessive. But those would be my main comments of what I'm seeing. It looks like an exciting project. I find anything they do, like the brownstones, these places become tight communities.
Right.
And I could see this becoming a great living community in Franklin.
Thank you. So this slide, I just want to talk to you, Brian. So you're talking about the townhomes on the right are
Talking about-
2-story along Liberty, and they transition 3 to the grade.
Actually, it reads 3 stories to me.
Yeah, on the back side, yes. On the back,
The property's sloping,
Yeah.
so you start at 2-story, but
yeah.
But when you see it in comparison to the other homes, I mean, it soars over them.
Yeah, it's grade change, dropping down, transition from Liberty down to Old Liberty Pike, yes.
And not only that, but how it reads with the historic property, which is what we would be the most concerned
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the height of the Alpheus True House, but I know it's tall for a 2-story house. That is a lot of story.
Okay, Tyler? Or is that you, are you
No,
too,
I'm,
Brian?
I'm,
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
I think I share some of the same concerns, but I don't know that we've got necessarily enough detail for me to say something's too tall or not yet. I think seeing kind of that street elevation, Jameson Station, and the Alpheus Truett House, just in a flat elevation, what are these heights with the real grade shown could be helpful. And I agree with staff on the setback thing. It may be as simple as taking, the 3 townhouses there and stepping each facade back. And I've seen that done successfully, or the first apartment building, if it's, looks as if it's 2+1 or 1+1 at the corner and can get bigger scale as it gets further away from the corner. Those can be useful mechanisms because we are changing the sky plane at that point and some of these visibility issues where you start to see these sight lines pass by instead of being confronted with tall walls. So I think, there's some things that can be done. You've already started doing it in plan where you're shifting courtyards back and creating kind of pockets. I think you can do that vertically too, which you've done a little bit of, but I think it can be done in a second dimension too, in a way that could really help the scale. And I also understand the 3-story thing on the townhouses. It's like, well, that makes the difference in whether you get a garage or not in those.
That's
and
right.
so it's a
Using
tough
grade to
proposition
our
because
advantage.
you need to lift it a little because you don't have quite enough grade to get the garage. But but like I said, if closest to the Alpheus Truett house were set back, a few more feet from the second and even a few more feet from the third townhouse, and that first townhouse might really need to be a 1.5-story with dormers and such, and you're scaling up even at a micro level. You've done it great at a macro level where you've really worked your way up, but even that first building can have some of that stepping up too. I think would help me feel more comfortable with the scale. And then I wrote the word fringe. Who doesn't like fringe? I see this particular property as kind of a fringe area. It doesn't fit into some box, and we're not the planning commission, but there's all kinds of things around this where you make a good argument for all different kinds of uses and scales because we can find something it's related to somewhere touching this property. While the factory is 2 stories, it's a big 2 stories. So I'm not sure it's fair to just go, well, it's 2 stories. I'm like, yeah, but it's the super tall, and so is Jameson Station's pretty tall for what it is. So there's some scale things. Those elevations, even if you're taking an elevation of the factory and putting it next to some of your buildings, I know we'll never see it that way, but it might help us have some baselines.
Some of the things that touch me were set back as well, especially. There we go. Dealing with the setbacks and looking at it from trying to emulate a little more open rural effect. Same thing what you're talking about, but that corner of Franklin Road and Liberty Pike, that first townhome, the scale of that, if that corner becomes more open, lower scale for the setback, that staggering effect, it gives relief for that corner as you come down that corridor instead of the elevation that you were referring to, Brian. When you look at that 4 and 1 setback townhome, that's a major impact to me, and it's almost like that hits me in my forefront when I come in to that streetscape, so seeing that taper down as well. So sort of a funnel effect into that corridor with the staggering setback, and you've brought out some problems with trying to make it multifamily with garage. There's a lot of challenges with that, but that seems to stand out to me. But again, trying to hold true to a more open rural effect, playing that game. Setbacks help with that a whole lot too. Even from separating facades even more, differentiating those masses from the front elevation plane.
Along the new street, you're talking about buildings 2, 3, and 4. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And everything seems to focus for people activity from the outside and instead of creating maybe more internal. I don't know, I think we'll talk more about more of it, but I'm just looking at another flip way to how you come into the property. And maybe it inverts the other way. I don't know if I'm even making sense of that. I don't even know how to alleviate the height and the big emphasis on the Liberty Pike side.
So if I can clarify between, it sounds like, Lisa, and you and Tyler are kind of the same, and even Brian to a certain degree. We are showing 2 stories along Liberty Pike for the townhomes. It does drop off 3 in the back. The home sites 2, 3, and 4 are 2 stories.
Okay.
Are you saying that you want to kind of step back the townhomes as you're going down Liberty Pike, like they pull back from the street a little bit? From a plan view, so they're close, and the next one's a little bit further than the one going towards the factory a little bit further. But that's what you're,
Right, more relief from the Franklin Road side, so that it's more of a funnel, wider funnel from Franklin Road going down Liberty Pike. Does that make sense?
and maybe a little bit of facade adjustment on 2, 3, and 4, just to kind of in and out, maybe a little bit on that street. I think really wanted to push the buildings up to the street that have that characteristic and pull it away from the Truett House to create a nice, there is that 75-foot buffer, and those lots are 160, 170 feet, 50 feet deep. Those single-family residential. Go ahead, Kelly.
I wonder if the intent is, what you're really trying to get at is maybe a different building form might also work there as that transition to the Truett House versus a townhouse. Maybe
Could
more
be a
like
different
another
building
house
form or just a
duplex.
manipulation of what they're trying to go after. I mean, I know you've got goals to meet with populating it, but it could be, yeah. It could be.
Yeah, because townhouses typically have a similar setback in the front, and so there might be some other design solutions to look at.
I don't want to cut this off too much, but we've got limited time here. So Susan, would you go ahead?
Honestly, I don't have anything to add. I think we've had some really good comments here with my fellow commissioners. And quite frankly, I will tell you I'm a bit overwhelmed in terms of just the project itself. And of course, I came in during the presentation, so I didn't hear the very beginning of it. So I think I just need some time to digest it, quite frankly.
I understand. That's fine. Thank you.
I guess my comments are, number one, overwhelmed would be a good word for 275 dwelling units on this property. So the mass and the density are the big concerns. I also have a concern on the impact of those properties along Old Liberty Pike, which is a very narrow 2-lane road now. And that's a concern to me on how it affects those folks. You've mentioned the entrance, a new entrance off of Liberty Pike, and so I understand that. Also, the concern on I think there's 6 residences on Daniels Drive in addition to Jameson Station that are, so that Daniels Drive, the impact of all of that, how that all fits together. And I think, lastly, I'm very concerned about 3, 4, and a possible 5th story on those larger buildings. So that, and how that works. So it's mass and density and impact on the surrounding structures are my biggest concern. I go along with what different folks have said too on what they've said, and that's. So maybe it's a great project.
Thank you.
It's a great, well thought out project, as I said originally. And I guess I would, I'd love to pick it up, put it somewhere else, but this is what we're dealing with. So, but I think the thought you put into it is we just need to keep massaging this.
And if I could, I'd like to give a couple additional comments. This, again, has not been reviewed by the whole city team.
No.
This needs to be reviewed by, the other planners, our engineering team. I know that there is some potential non-compliance, is what we've seen conceptually with the roadway network design or just the widths of the road. But ultimately, a couple things I want you guys to keep in mind is the single-family home recommendation for our design guidelines is that there's lot context that's comparable in size to what you see around it. So you have the Truett House, which I know has a sizable yard and probably more so than what you would see around it with Old Liberty, but the expectation is that footprint not exceed 35% of the lot. So these, if they're all single family, they maybe need to be spaced a little bit more so that they don't cover a majority of the lot on which they sit. Or the historic district design guidelines could be considered to not apply in that circumstance by the commission if that's what the commission decides. But that is what the guideline states. Another thing I wanted to note is that this is something, again, that you'll be seeing a few more times, certainly. We do appreciate all the comments that you've given, and I'm sure that things will change as it evolves and kind of massages through that process. And so if you have any other comments that you'd like to share as the applicant continues to move forward, I think that what I've heard as a recap is generally that the scale transition is something of a concern, and that we need really 3D modeling. I think would really help on this project. I believe the zoning ordinance requires it for projects of this scale, but ultimately something that shows context. So the 3D model of this building in relation to the factory across the street, like Tyler had mentioned, but also in relation to Jameson. So we hear 4 with the 5th recessed, but because it's a different building use, maybe that is the same height. And so if we see that through a 3D model, that might be helpful. But then also that would help with understanding transition back to the Truett House. So is that helpful? Do you think that would be helpful for you guys? Sure. Okay.
Okay, anything else from this body?
Would there be a desire to site visit from you all?
I'm sorry?
Is there a desire to visit the site? Should we organize a site visit with you, city staff?
I mean, not defer, at this stage, I don't know. But would y'all like it now?
I
or
think it'd be
just
more useful when we get
down the
further
road
along,
a little bit, I
in my
think.
opinion.
Certainly, at some point down the road, certainly, because it's incredible what site visits can help us with. So, if nothing else, then I'll just.
I do think a site visit will be helpful once you see maybe more models.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate your dedication and time and definitely a lot of detail given to the commission to consider as staff continues to work with you. This was really helpful for us. I hope it was for you guys too.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you very
Happy
much. Nice to
Thanksgiving.
meet you. Thank you.
Amanda, we'll follow up with you with any other questions
Absolutely.
based on what we heard as well.